as far as I'm concerned, what we're living through right this second is the result of over 100 years of planning and manipulation and massaging the public and changing their views and their morals and their standards and this, that, and here it is. They decided that 2020 was the year that they had to make their move because Mr. Trump was standing in front of everything they wanted to do. Trump was well ahead everywhere. Then they did their goofy get on the telephone with each other and decide, okay, we got to go to Plan B. Plan B, I don't think they wanted to use Plan B. I think they were hoping their machines could keep up with the tabulations, but it couldn't do it. It was too much. So they said, well, it's going to look ridiculous. It's going to be right in their face. I mean, we're going to have to truck in ballots in the middle of it. Just do it. And they went for it.
Hey friends, Sean from SGTReport.com here. That was Bob Rinear, and I think you're very much going to enjoy this interview. First, just a word from this interview's sponsor. Hundreds of thousands in Oklahoma are finding themselves without power as a destructive ice storm flattened power lines and trees across the area. The fear of going days without power is the exact reason why I have the Fighter Flare flashlight. This is a professional-grade tactical ultra-bright flashlight. It's entirely solar-powered, so you never have to worry about batteries dying when you need it the most. The Fighter Flare flashlight also comes with a life-saving emergency strobe setting along with 4 other life-saving modes, along with a life-saving fire-starting ignition lighter on the bottom. Yeah, the Fighter Flare flashlight has it all, and it can be seen from 500 meters away because it comes with 800 lumens. Get your Fighter Flare flashlight at fighterflare.com or click the link in the description below, and you can save 20% this holiday season with promo code SGT20. So buy them as a gift and hand them out like candy. Get yours today. I recommend it. Hey friends, welcome back. Thank you so much for tuning in. It's Sean from SGTReport.com and SGTReport.tv. You know the platforms. There's many of them in lieu of the YouTube deplatforming. You can find me on Rumble, on Odyssey, all over the place. Parler, Minds, Gab. Guys, I have on the line Bob Rinear. His website is investyourself.com. He also is the lead contributor at International Forecaster. Now, for those of you that have been with me for a decade or more, you know that I used to be friends with the late Bob Chapman. Used to have Bob Chapman on all the time. A great guy, a truth teller. He was ahead of his time, and when he passed, Bob Rinear stepped in to help keep his legacy going at the International Forecaster. Bob, thanks for reaching out. I'm glad to have you on.
Hey, Sean, I'm really glad to be on myself. It's quite an honor. Thank you.
Well, the honor's all mine, and you come to me from the sunny climes of Florida. Now, I know you're using green screen there, but I still appreciate your background since I'm in the sunny climes of the great north.
Yeah, I had to do that. I'm not actually in my standard office right this second. If truth to be told, I'm in a spare bedroom office. So I figured I better put the green screen up so that you don't see the dresser drawers behind me.
Well, I'll take it. Like I said, winter is fast approaching here in the Great White North. All right, so I wanted to ask you about the election, or the lack thereof. Okay, it's completely crooked, it's completely corrupt, and now the deep state vipers are starting to really identify themselves as such. Governors, all sorts of state officials that are saying nothing to see here. There was no corruption, including the mainstream media. Your view on where we are at right now and your outlook for what the outcome may be.
Well, what you just stated suggests that the deep state was a whole lot wider than just Washington, D.C. It's in every state. It's in every state's house across this land. And I think that one of the problems that Trump ran into when he figured, okay, I've been selected to do this job, to kind of clean up the deep state, it was a whole lot bigger and wider than he expected, I believe. And so here we are. We've got people certifying the election at the very exact time Rudy and his gang are presenting some of the most amazing evidence, that you could have. So it's really, really messy. But as far as I'm concerned, and I've changed my story quite a bit over the, as things develop, trying to figure out, all right, was this a trap? Did Trump set a trap back in 2018, like with his executive order concerning elections and machines and foreign influence, etc.? Was this a trap? Did the left step into this snare? I think it's very possible. The interesting thing about this is, Trump saw what took place in the midterms. He's a smart guy. He's an incredibly bright guy. And he had to know that they were going to come guns a-blasting to just do everything humanly possible to pull this election away from him. So I tend to think, I don't want to be pie in the sky and hopeful Mary or what have you, but I tend to think he was ready for all of this. He has it. He's got the evidence that he needs, and he's just allowing them. He's giving them the rope to hang themselves. Because the longer this goes on, the more swamp creatures we're finding.
Well, that's 100% right. And, we've always known that the CIA pretty much runs the show. If you think of the deep state, the shadow government, the first thing most people think of is the CIA, people like Gina Haspel. Let me read you an email I got today from a supporter named Scott. Scott writes, "Sorry to be a bother. However, I've seen multiple stories, like 20 or more, stating Gina Haspel has either been arrested for treason, assassinated, died in her sleep, wounded in a gunfight and hiding, is just fine, and it's a big hoax posted on Reddit, was last seen having lunch with Mitch McConnell." He says, clear as mud. I'll tell you what I do believe about that to be true is the fact that I've heard a report, and it stems from the same Chinese group of whistleblowers that said there was a Hunter Biden laptop, and then that actually ended up being true. They're saying that Biden has met with Mitch McConnell and is trying to broker some sort of concession, right? He knows he's caught. He knows that the math won't stand up to scrutiny. And the rumor is that he's trying to broker a deal with Trump to concede, but he wants amnesty for he and his family. As Scott wrote me in that email, clear as mud, right? Clear as mud.
Clear as mud. I watched Mr. Gao say that on his G News that Biden had approached McConnell saying that I'm having a hard time buying that particular part of this story. Although at this point, nothing would surprise me, I don't think. Excuse me. But, they went all out on this one. As far as I'm concerned, what we're living through right this second is the result of over 100 years of planning and manipulation and massaging the public and changing their views and their morals and their standards and this, that, and here it is. They decided that 2020 was the year that they had to make their move because Mr. Trump was standing in front of everything they wanted to do. They wanted floods and floods of immigrants. Trump built a wall. They wanted, everything that they wanted to do. They wanted to blame us for our carbon, for breathing out. So Trump got us out of the Paris environmental situation.
Climate Accord.
Climate control. Thank you. So everything that they've been on point for doing, Trump stood in their way. And I think they all got together and they said, look, we can't have 4 more years of this guy. We were supposed to have Hillary. Hillary was supposed to go along with all of these schemes. Now we've got this guy who's putting a halt to it and is promoting nationalism instead of the one world order that we need with, Klaus and his boys from the World Economic Forum. Did anybody vote for this guy, by the way? I don't remember doing that. But I think they said, this is it. We've got to, throw it all, see what sticks. And we're in the middle of that.
Well, we're definitely in the middle of that. And guys, do you remember those pallets of bricks that were pre-placed in cities like Portland and Seattle? All over the country, we saw pallets of pre-placed bricks. So convenient for Antifa and BLM when they wanted to riot and destroy cities. But also on that note, guys, do you remember the shipment of full auto AR lowers that was discovered as being shipped from China? Bob might have some insights on that, because I think Bob and I both fear that if the lawfully re-elected Donald Trump is sworn in on January 20th or after, the cities might burn, or worse. Bob, what are your thoughts on anything I just said? You know as well as I do that George Soros, unless he's arrested, will help foster and foment more domestic terror.
Oh, they certainly will. And I think that's the thing that has our alert system on red alert. Like I said, I don't think you've mentioned it to your listeners yet, but along with being a financial newsletter writer, I'm a silent partner in a weapons training company. We train people down here in Florida from everything from the concealed carry license right up to full out SWAT. We've trained the Florida Highway Patrol, et cetera, et cetera. And so we keep our ears open pretty big when we hear of shady things taking place. Well, one of the shady things that took place was that there was indeed a shipment of full auto AR lowers that had been confiscated. I believe it was in Ohio, but I could be wrong about that. And it threw a switch in my head that said, that's one they caught. There's a whole bunch of them that they didn't catch. And it's my feeling, and some of us here in the alt-right, and especially in the weapons training areas, we think that one of the reasons there's such a shortage of ammo and good firing weapons is because the left has been buying some of this too. Some people say it's just to keep us, the right, from protecting ourselves, but others think that they really think they're going to go to war over this. And when you start seeing things like shipments coming in from China with full auto lowers, you have to, at least submit to the concept that something very, very ugly could take place if indeed Mr. Trump gets in the way he should. He won this election, there's no question whatsoever. But the reaction in the past, the Portland riots and some burning and some looting, that's one thing. It's a whole nother thing when you're talking about a band of 100 people walking down the street with full auto ARs. That's something to pay attention to.
Well, it sure is. And I'll tell you this. You mentioned full auto AR lowers coming in, being traced back to China. How about the China ballots? I wonder how many of these perfectly filled out ballots that only had votes colored in for Biden are actually not official ballots. See, I want the Kraken that Sidney Powell has been talking about. I want this all tracked and traced, and I want it all presented to the American public. Now, these hearings that we've seen so far with Rudy and his team, great. But I want to see the hardcore stuff, and I don't think anybody's going to see that until Sidney Powell and her team share it with the Supreme Court. But I'm telling you what, man, China, this is a huge national security threat. Biden is sold out to China. You know it, I know it, the listeners know it. So does the president, so do the Joint Chiefs. The man is an absolute national security threat, Bob. He cannot be allowed to become president.
Well, like you, I'm sure you saw quite a few of the short videos off of Hunter's laptop. Biden, not being the sharpest axe in the shed, he was awful proud of himself getting that Ukrainian prosecutor fired so that they could get their $1 billion. Yeah, this guy has his hands in a lot more things than just China and just Ukraine. There's other countries involved here, and it's all shady and it's all nasty. One of the jokes in America politics, people joke about it, that these people come into politics and they're dirt poor. I mean, they don't have 2 pennies to rub together, and 10 years later, they're all multimillionaires. Where's all this money come from? And we all know where some of it comes from. But as far as I'm concerned, in the Biden situation, there's hundreds of millions of dollars that have come in from China. There's money that's come in from Belarus. There's money that's come in from satellite states of Russia, Ukraine. And this guy is going to be the president of the United States? I don't think so.
I don't think so. No way. He cannot be. He cannot be the president. First of all, it's an absolute illegitimate election. And second of all, take a look at this. If you guys think that these lawsuits don't have merit, look, obviously none of us believe what CNN, Washington Post, New York Times, MSNBC, the Mockingbird whore mainstream media has no credibility. They say that the lawsuits are meritless. They say that there was no election fraud that is quantifiable or provable. Take a look at this. Bob, you're going to find this interesting. The audience will too. I just wanted to Google and share a little bit about Joe Biden's gun control plan. His plan would mean you, dear citizen, lawful citizen, giving up your guns to end what he calls gun violence. But check this out. When I click on the link, it takes me to this page. We are relaunching the Biden Fight Fund. Donald Trump is doubling down on lawsuits. We need to be able to afford the legal battles ahead and ensure Trump doesn't win them just because we don't have the funds to fight back. How interesting is that, Bob? They know that Trump's lawsuits have merit, because if the lawsuits didn't, they wouldn't need to put this page up. I think that's very, very interesting. I think that Biden and Harris, they know their goose is cooked. This does not get past the Supreme Court of the United States.
No. I'm 100% convinced that not only does Joe know, not only does Kamala know, not only does the media know, they all know that the fix went in. All right. So the standard story that we're hearing from all the guys, Pachenkos and Robert David Steele or whomever, is that there was a sting, there was a setup, there was this, that, and the other thing. But the bottom line is, come midnight of election day, we know Trump was well ahead everywhere. Then they did their goofy get on the telephone with each other and decide, okay, we got to go to plan B. Plan B, I don't think they wanted to use plan B. I think they were hoping their machines could keep up with the tabulations, but it couldn't do it. It was too much. So they said, well, it's going to look ridiculous. It's going to be right in their face. I mean, we're going to have to truck in ballots in the middle of just do it. And they went for it. And the reason why is it's really pretty simple. In a way, it's a win-win for these guys. If they get away with it somehow, they win. But even if they don't, by promoting with the media telling, just 10 minutes ago, as I was doing this interview with you, Janet Yellen's on TV talking about what she's going to do as treasurer. And he's announcing everything's going along as if this is set in stone. And if it's not, if we're right, if Sean, if you're right, if I'm right, if, Janda's right and the rest of us are right, and this goes to Trump, can you imagine the anarchy in the streets? Those full auto lowers, the rioting, the looting. The left can sit back and say, hey, you know what? All right, so we didn't get in this time around. They caught our fraud, but watch what our minions are going to do. It's going to be disgusting. It's going to be ugly.
All right. Well, we're going to talk about how people can protect themselves in a worst-case scenario in a second, but let me show you this, guys, first before we move on here. Sidney Powell, Dominion server removed from Fulton County while lawyers sought restraining order. All right, the level of criminality that we're witnessing in this non-election, Bob, is absolutely staggering. And I do ask the question again, do these people think they're not being watched? Now, I would imagine, just like on 9/11 at the Pentagon, all of the cameras probably just failed to work. So maybe we don't have these people on video, whoever took the server. But look, these people are actively trying to cover up their fraud. So they committed felonies in the election, and now they're committing more felonies to try to destroy the evidence, Bob.
Yeah, they are. And again, it's in your face. The thing that's different about this one was, I think, like I just said, they got together and they said, if we do what we need to do, it's going to be wide open. Everybody's going to be able to see it. And they said, we don't care. Go with it. The worst that can happen is we get caught. And that's where they're at, hoping that the swamp is so deep that all these lower circuit judges and this, that, and the FBI, where are they at? Where's the DOJ at? Where are these, where's the cop on the beat? So they're figuring the swamp is so deep, even if we put it out there, it looks ridiculous, we're going to pull this off. And if we don't, we're going to burn the country to the ground.
Well, here's the good news as I see it. The white hats, the people surrounding the president, know that Biden cannot get in. He cannot be allowed to be quote-unquote president because A, it would be completely illegitimate. B, he's bought and paid for by Russia and China. C, he's a clear and present national security threat. So I don't think this ends well for Biden. Now, if that plays out the way so many of us think it will, the rioting we will see, Bob, will be mainly in Democrat-controlled states and cities, okay? Because we're not going to see rioting and burning and looting in South Dakota under Kristi Noem's watch. We're not going to see it in Florida. We're not going to see it in Texas, okay? But the mass majority of it that will be reported on and shown on TV will be in places like Portland and Seattle and Chicago and New York City and Los Angeles. And yeah, it'll be a powder keg. It could potentially be an absolute hellhole, an absolute nightmare, but those will be the places where the propaganda is peddled by the mainstream media.
Oh, the most, by far. Every major Democrat-hold city will be a powder keg, and that's their job, is to fire up the base, and the violence is just a bonus for them. So there's going to be, I hate to say it, but there's going to be shooting in the streets. It's going to happen in select areas. Now, like you say, you come down to rural Florida, you know, we've got a pretty good governor here, and we've got a lot of people. You know, Second Amendment in Florida is pretty important. We're nicknamed the gunshine state for a reason. So yeah, out in rural Florida, you're not going to have any problems. You might have some issues in Jacksonville. You might have some issues in Miami per se, or maybe downtown Tampa. But that's it. It's going to be collected into the Detroits and LAs of the world. But I think it can be pretty ugly. Unfortunately, when you think about this, there's an awful lot of people that live in Detroit or Tampa or LA or these strongholds. So, I pray for peace every day. I pray Jesus just says, no, I'm not going to let this happen. But I tend to think when Trump gets elected, they're going to unleash the dogs.
Let me ask you about protection. Let me ask you about worst case scenario. Now, for a guy like me who's got a Kimber 1911 45 ACP and a Sig Sauer 9mm, is that enough? Or do I need to get weapons training with an AR-15? Does everybody have to lock and load and get ready? I mean, how does one protect themselves? Look, I'm not in a big urban area, so I'm not really worried about that kind of rioting where I live. But for those who are in those areas, how do they protect themselves?
Well, I'm really pretty biased about this because, like I said, I'm involved in a weapons training company, and we teach people this stuff, so I'm biased. But trying to keep the bias out of it, all right? You just said you got a Kimber, you got a nice 9mm. You have something to try and protect your property from these animals. If the animals show up, you've got something nice to say hello with. A lot of people have been really late to the party, and now that, especially over the last few months with the lockdowns, the COVID baloney, they've gone to the gun shops to try and buy something, and there hasn't been anything there. The ammunition is gone. The decent guns are gone. There has been an awful lot of people trying to learn really, really quick, how to scoop up some arms and defend themselves. So the question is, of what you just asked is, well, how do we do that? Well, naturally, I can't teach a 20-day course or something, but I can give you some hints, some help. If you're downtown, you're in a high-rise apartment and you're downtown, your best security is staying in that house, barring a fire, staying in that apartment with a bunch of locks and whatever type of weaponry you have. And you only let that door open when you know who's on the other side. When you move out into, not rural, but outside of the city per se, to where you've got developments, urban developments, this, that, and the other thing, the important thing to keep them in mind is if you have an angry mob, say there's like 50 people, and you get a phone call, hey, there's like 50 people coming down the street. They usually do this stuff at night. They usually won't do it in the daytime. All right, there's a few things that you need to do. One, is you need to make your house dark. And I know that sounds completely different. Usually, hey, if you're about to get burgled, do you want all your lights on? No, you do not want to draw attention to your house. You want your house dark, dark, dark. All right. People sometimes they don't realize that wherever the light is, that's where it gets seen. Like take an office building, right? They can put a minimal amount of tint on the windows. And as long as the sun's up, you can't see a thing in there. It's pitch black. You see the building, the window. But at night, if they put just a candle up on the desk, you can see everything. And the clock on the wall, the computers, everything. So you need to make the inside of your house dark. Not to where it's pitch black where you can't see, but dark. You don't want to bring attention to yourself. All right. So step one is keep your house mellow, because even animals, as they're coming down the street and they look at a darkened house and they go, maybe there's 5 guys in there with shotguns waiting to blow my head off. I'm going to leave that one alone. They'll go down and they'll put their lasers on the house that's got all lit up and try and bring those people out. You don't want that. All right. So part one, keep dark. Part two, stay away from windows. Even though the masses might ignore trying to, come into your house, it's dark, they don't know what's in there. They might not be against throwing a red brick through your front window. Okay, so you don't want to be anywhere near that. Now, suppose a red brick comes through your front window. Red-blooded guy like yourself, like me, you want to grab a weapon and run outside and make this right. Don't do that. Okay, you can't do that. You get on the phone, get on 911, and you say, hey, a band of crazy people are walking down my street. They just heaved a brick through my front, and you keep that on, and hopefully that mass just keeps on going down the street. Keep that on with the person at the call center so that they can hear if anything else is going crazy. Don't pick up your gun and run outside and shoot somebody. You're just going to make life bad for yourself. The only time you should start shooting is if they breach your door. If they come in, now all bets are off. You're telling this 911 operator, I'm in fear of my life. I have my family sequestered in a central bathroom. I'm in fear for their life, and the animals have broken in my front door. Now, if the shots ring out, well, that's a whole different story, and I believe you're justified. You can't be justified for, going out there with an AR-15 or even your Kimber or your 9mm and standing there and waving it back and forth, because they're going to do to you illegally what they did to the couple out in St. Louis. Or one of these animals might have his own gun and say, you know what, I think I'm more righteous than you, and now you got a shootout going on, which you really don't need unless you got a whole lot of training under your belt. So keep your house dark. Again, you don't be a hero. Don't go out there waving your stuff. Trying to keep low key. Hopefully the mass passes, leaves you alone. When things get so terrible that you have no choice but to confront, well, that's the kind of training that we provide, but you needed it a long time ago.
Just one thought about the couple in St. Louis and in other spots around the country, where we've seen small towns where all sorts of well-armed patriots show up in the business areas during the day, and then Antifa and BLM do not come there at night because they don't want to be confronted by well-armed people, militias, patriots. They're cowards. They seek the path of least resistance, so they just mow down areas where there is no resistance. Do you agree with me that a lawful, constitutional, patriotic governor would tell its citizens that they can defend their property even with lethal force? Because if that had been said by the governor in Oregon or any of these governors where we've seen all this rioting and looting, don't you think we would have seen a lot less rioting and looting if these rioters and looters thought, hey, if I go into this business, I might get my head blown off?
I do, as a matter of fact, and that's why I'm so proud of Ron DeSantis down here in Florida. He presented a bill that says exactly that. That if your business, your home is being confronted by a band of looters, rioters, etc., you have the right to defend that property, including up to lethal. So we have a few who are willing to come out and do the right thing? And the answer is absolutely. If these mayors and governors would say to the people, hey, look, you have a right that your business is not going to be overrun and burned down. It's your livelihood. You very well could die from what happens after that. So you have the right to use lethal force when your business is being destroyed. An awful lot of this would come to an end. No question, Sean.
All right, I agree. Well, let's take the last 5-10 minutes here to talk about the economy and the future of the dollar. You and I both know what's coming if Klaus Schwab gets his great reset. If George Soros, if the globalists, Bill Gates, John Kerry, by the way, who went to the World Economic Forum, and he says the great reset's an awesome idea because we have to end Trumpism. We have to end populism. We have to put an end to the sovereignty of the United States. John Kerry's an absolute traitor. Guys, there are traitors on both sides of the aisle, don't get me wrong. The Democrats, completely and wholly corrupt. Many of the Republicans are right there with them. All right, so here's my question. For those of us that have gold and silver in physical form, we haven't really been rewarded for that, certainly not like those that hold Bitcoin and some of these cryptocurrencies. Here's my question. If Biden gets in, God forbid, it will be the end of our republic, and then what's coming? Number one. Number two, if Trump gets in, which I pray happens, he's still going to have to print a lot of money and spend a lot of money, and then what happens to the dollar? What is your forecast in the short and long term?
Okay, so gold and silver are the two most manipulated commodities on the planet, always have been. It's the only commodity where the price is based off of the derivative instead of supply and demand. So you can see how rigged that is, all right? So as much as I am a believer in gold and silver, I'm never surprised when it doesn't price out where it should be. Now, they're making sure of that. Okay. No matter what, and here's where it's going to sound like I'm hanging out with Klaus. I'm not. No matter what, a reset of some type needs to take place. Let's be honest, Sean. Brutally honest. The debts can't be repaid. The multi-trillions into quadrillions of derivative debts can't be paid. There has to be a reset of some type or a collapse of an enormity that we've never seen in world history.
I agree, but can I just interject?
Sure.
And I know that you're on the same page here with me. I just want to make it clear to the audience what the big reset, what the great reset is, what Klaus Schwab wants, what we see. The documents we see coming out of Canada suggest that the Great Reset will provide debt reduction or debt forgiveness when you become collateral to the IMF. Okay, that's essentially the Great Reset, is human beings become property of this globalist government, and you no longer will get to own property yourself because you will be a serf in perpetuity, so will your offspring. Friends, this is the globalist nightmare dystopian world that they want. And so that's not the kind of Great Reset we need, Bob.
That's the globalist wet dream. Sorry to be so crude, but that's their honeypot there. That you will own nothing. We'll give you a basic monthly income to survive on, and you're going to be happy. Well, nobody's going to be happy with it. Okay, but we do. There's no question. The system is broken the way it is, so it needs to be reset. And there's several ways that this can come about. One of the ways is, of course, with a gold standard. And people go, well, you can't do that because of the price of gold. There's not enough gold. That can be changed. The price of gold, if you make the price of gold high enough, you can cover all of your dollars with a percentage of gold backing. So there's several ways that can go. But a reset of some form will have to take place. Otherwise, this system has to crash. And nobody wants that. Nobody.
Well, one thing's for sure, Bob. If Trump gets in, there will be a more equitable reset that will include the sovereignty remaining for our nation. Now, a reset under sleepy, creepy, sold out to China Joe Biden, a reset under that guy is going to be the dystopian nightmare that Klaus Schwab wants. So we'll be clear about that. All right, as we part ways, for those who want ammunition and seem to not be able to find any ammunition anywhere, what would you suggest?
Okay. I'm gonna put this out there. I don't know if my camera is gonna pick it up. Probably not. No, it's not looking too good. Okay, I've got ammo for you guys. Now, I don't have any stake in this company. I'm not getting paid by these guys. They're just people that I know. It's the ammo that I carry, and they have some available. They have a lot available. You want to go to pilgrimammunition.com. You can call them. You'll talk to a guy named James, or you can do it on the website. They've got 9mm, they've got 40, they've got 45. They don't have any rifle calibers, but they have the 9, the 40, and the 45. Folks, let me tell you something. I teach people weapon self-defense. It is the only ammunition that I will carry. Sean and I, we could do an entire hour on the ballistics of why it is so good. It is so good because it was designed for the military. Get some, pilgrimammunition.com. If you talk to James, tell him Bob sent you. Won't get you a dime off, but he'll talk your ear off and you'll have some fun. All right?
All right. Real briefly, guys, I know just a little bit about this company because of the pre-call here with Bob, where he explained to me that the ballistics, this ammunition was designed and created for the military, and the ballistics, well, let's just put it this way. If, God forbid, you needed to use lethal force, this bullet isn't going to go through your intruder and hit a small child standing behind the intruder. This bullet will do the job it needs to do, and that'll be that. No pass-through with this ammunition. This isn't range ammo. This isn't go out and practice shooting practice ammo. This is the stuff you want for self-defense. So it is a little bit more expensive, but it will do its job in a pinch. Okay, so I just want to make that real clear. It's not cheap, but this is the tactical ammo you want to defend yourself and your family. Okay, you're not going to want to use this up at the range. Did I summarize that correctly, Bob?
You're exactly right. This was designed for maximum impact on impact and expend all of its energy inside target and not come out the other side and hurt some poor innocent bystander.
I know that's very gruesome, guys, and this is not the type of conversations I typically have, but this is where we are at this point in our republic. We are at war. War is being waged against the republic. And we pray to God that justice is served. We pray to God that Mike Adams is right, and there are special ops teams flying around right now all over the world arresting people, taking people to Gitmo, questioning people, getting the evidence needed to save this republic. I pray to God. I know a lot of that seems pie in the sky, guys, but again, Esper was fired. Chris Miller was put in. Special ops report directly to him. There are big things happening. And thank God in heaven we have Donald J. Trump, a man who is not sold out to these globalist interests, still in there as president today with tremendous power. A red-blooded patriot defending the republic. Godspeed, President Trump. We love you. Bob, thank you so much for your time today. We appreciate you too.
Hey, Sean, thanks for having me on. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Hey, the pleasure's all mine. Guys, the websites are investyourself.com. Bob offers free newsletters twice a week. He also is the lead contributor at International Forecaster, my old friend Bob Chapman's site. We really appreciate. Bob, thank you so much, man. I'll talk to you again soon.
Take care, John.
All right, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. We love you very much, especially those that support us at sgtreport.tv or over on Subscribestar. Real SGT Report. Thank you so much for keeping us in the fight, friends, for truth and real news. And for real news, you can get it all for free every single day at sgtreport.com, the antidote to corporate propaganda. God bless you one and all. Bye-bye.